Welcome to Sunday Inspiration. I'm Vicky Haddock. And I wanted to create a place for you to connect to your soul and understand that you can transcend all perceived limits in your life. I've learned that the faster you get past what's holding you back, the stronger you become and the braver you are at taking the next leap. And then the higher you rise and create more freedom than you dreamed possible. Connect to your soul's inner longing, be guided by it, and let go of the weight that's holding you back, and ignite the fire in your soul. What Eiffel Tower-sized thing does your soul want you to do? When you become fearless, you become limitless. Now, prepare to be inspired as I share this week's life journey of one person that has inspired me. This week on Sunday Inspiration, coming up in just a moment, you get to meet Annemiek van Helmstingen. She is the founder of the Academy for Soul-Based Coaching and lives in the Netherlands. And what a beautiful lady, delightful interview, and a privilege to get to interview her. You're going to be inspired by her life of growing up as a child, feeling like she never fit in anywhere. And then going on to have a career that was successful, but not necessarily fulfilling. And then how she overcame numerous health issues in her life to keep on going, and then eventually really connect with her soul and her soul's passion and create the Academy for Soul-Based Coaching, and how she thrives on a daily basis in her role. And so just join me to be inspired here by Annemiek. Well, good afternoon, Annemiek. I am excited to be with you here today to feature your story on our Sunday Inspiration show. You're the second story that's being featured as we've launched this new Sunday Inspiration in 2020. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really happy, Vicky, that I get to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Tell my audience a little bit about where you're located in the world and what you're doing now, and then we're going to dive into your beautiful story.
Yeah, of course. So I'm in the Netherlands, in Amersfoort, which is dead in the middle of our tiny, tiny country. And what I do is I'm the founder of the Academy for Soul-Based Coaching. And what we do is we train soul-based coaches, certified coaches online in live programs.
Awesome. So you're doing in-person programs with them as well as online.
Well, no, actually, it is all online, but in person. So it's not just watch a video and do stuff. It's like this, like the
Oh,
way we're
gotcha.
talking. So we can practice and talk, and everybody can answer their, ask their questions, get feedback on how they are doing their coaching.
That's
And it's really
awesome.
exciting. So our audience is all around the world, literally, and we often have like I don't know, like 3 different um, oh God, what are they called? Continents available, or
Awesome.
in any of our training groups, which is beautiful. Yeah,
So you have to juggle the time zones a little bit when figuring that all out, I'm
we
sure.
do. And this is why I told you I always double check. We've
Yeah.
made many mistakes in the past. Yeah.
Yeah, I always have to keep that straight and that world time clock is so online is so fun to be able to figure that out. So
Yeah.
so I we crossed in an online business school group, and your story, or the little bit about that you shared in the group, was so inspirational to me. That is why I decided to reach out to you and wanted to feature a little bit about your story on our Sunday Inspiration here. So let's just dive in and tell us a little bit about you. What happened as a youth that maybe impacted your future later on? Let's learn about Annemiek.
Yeah, sure. always so many ways to tell the story, right? Okay, so I think, well, what makes most sense to know is that I was a very sensitive kid. I was very good at picking up people's feelings and the general atmosphere of a room or a group. And a lot of what I was experiencing didn't make sense to me. Like the things people would say and the things that I would feel didn't match up, and the things that people would do and what I would experience wouldn't add up either. And so I got on this quest of, so what is happening, to make sense of that. And I was always like a good student, working hard and trying to take all the boxes. And it led me even into university to business management studies, which is, I look at it now, I'm like, that's a really interesting choice. But hey,
Yeah.
somebody has to learn about that. But it was all about, so how does this world function? How does it work? How do our organizations, our businesses work? How do people work together? So I was very much focusing on the people side of businesses and looking at, so how can we help people do better, be better, and be more, function better, not just from an efficiency or a profit perspective, but how can things just work better as a whole? And that really brought me to executive coaching and change facilitation in organizations, which is really interesting. There's a lot that you can learn there, and there's a lot that you can do there. Yeah, if you would have asked me then, I would have told you, wow, I was right where I was supposed to be. I was like a fish in water. It was my space. But actually, what happened was that first I burned out. So I was home for quite a long time, and then when I started going back into work, it took me years to get into like a normal work week. Up to a point where I thought, well, this is actually not going to happen. This is not going to work.
Wow.
So I have to change this, which was very scary. In Holland, we have so many social security, and I was like leaving a gilded cage almost. But I was utterly miserable, and my health was suffering. So I decided to go freelance, start my own company, and actually do the same work, but on my own terms, which was cool.
What gave you the courage to do that?
Well, there was this part of me that went, I'd done all the things that I was supposed to do to kind of regain my health. And, and in the process, I've done a lot of therapy and a lot of all sorts of stuff. But I'd stopped a 10-year relationship. I was like, everything in my life was kind of upside down. And I was like, if this is still not giving me my energy back, then there's something else that needs to happen, because I was convinced that it was not, this was not it for me. I was not going to live my life with like 60% of my energy available. That was just not on.
You weren't going to accept the circumstance the way it was.
Yes, no, there's no way that I could do that. And there's a very stubborn streak in me, but there's also a really deep knowing that that's not what I'm here for. So what I did was I actually negotiated a sabbatical leave. I wanted 6 months. They gave me 5, so unpaid. But what I did was I canceled my lease, put all my stuff in storage, and got my little car. And I just drove to Ireland, where there was somebody living that I'd met on a holiday. And she'd invited me to stay. She was running this center for healing and music. And I was just there and, doing like dishes and cleaning up and office work and whatever was needed. And I was just kind of hanging out. And so this went on for a couple of months. I went to spend some time with other friends in the UK. And it's like, at some point I was like, okay, this is the end of my time. And I knew I wasn't going to come back. I as soon as I'd, arranged all this, I knew there was no way that I could come back into my job. But as I said, it was such a scary step to take, that it took me a while to get my head around it. So yeah, there was a time, and I think actually it was a book by Paul McKenna. This was 2004, 2005, so a long time ago. So he was I think he's a British NLP coach who'd written a book about how to make changes in your life. And I wrote the book. There's some meditation type things in there as well. I did it. And then at some point I asked myself, there was this knowing inside of me that went, there's a lot of people out there that go freelance that make it. So why not me? There was that one question that really shifted everything. So
that's awesome. It opened up the possibility for you.
Absolutely. Yes. And then, of course, that was very scary because there's a big part of my programming, which is about, when I look at my family of origin and their stories, that is about how you can lose everything several times over, and how important financial and material security is.
So how did you overcome that in particular? Because I find that so many people get stuck right there. They just can't see. Number one, did you realize that those things from your family of origin, that those things were consciously controlling how you were thinking? And then how did you find the courage to move past? Because I think that's something that so many people are looking for. How do I find that courage to go from here to here when it seems like such radical life change?
Yeah, I think I found different answers in different periods of my life, because this was one radical change, but there's definitely be at least one more. But I think looking back at that point in time, this is part of the book actually. Was it? I think so. I don't think I own that book anymore. I'm actually starting to get curious.
Did you say the author was Paul McKenna?
I think
okay.
So. I don't remember the title, but so one of the things I did was I listed my assets. So I listed my savings. I listed my, whatever my little car was worth, and the little printer that I had. And I was like, okay, and so how much does living cost me actually? And I knew that I was pretty good at living on a minimum for a while if I needed to. I also knew that I live in Holland, which is a country with good social security. So it doesn't mean that there's like a basic level of what's the word?
Like almost like a safety net, or
there's a level of benefits that I would probably be entitled to, which wouldn't be enough to live on, but it would be like at least it would buy me food, basically, and it would give me, So I was really like, instead of letting the fear drive me, I was really researching. So what is the actual truth of where I am right now? And I think what I realized was that I had at least 6 months of money behind me to take the jump. And in 6 months, a lot of things can happen. And there was this thing about, so in these 6 months, is there an opportunity to earn at least an extra month? So, kind of spreading that.
So you were saying, if I can get one more month out of this, then I can get one more month, and I can.
Exactly. So it's really looking at, so instead of going, because, by now I've been self-employed for basic maths, 15 years. My brother still asks me if I wouldn't rather have a secure job. So like, this is really ingrained in our system. And even though, that our academy runs beautifully, it's like looking that sense of general dread that was in my body, in the eye, and go, okay, so what actually is at stake here? If worst comes to worst, what is my safety net? I knew I could always drop in with my sister, right? They'd actually told me. So I would have some place to live. I'd have food. And there's still stuff that I could do. And online back then was still not really possible, not really done. But over the years, that has changed massively. So there's so many ways that we can start to earn money. That yes, it was just not worth it. This is so looking it in the eye, but on the other end, really looking at what it was costing me to stay where I was.
Yeah.
And not just in terms of money, but in happiness, in health, in there was, I was slowly dying, and I'm not exaggerating. There was just there was no escape for me, and I had tried everything I could think of for 3-4 years to change that, but I really got to a point where there was just no perspective left.
And it motivated you to take that next leap forward because you were committed. Sounds like you were very committed to your own happiness and finding the answers at that point too. You weren't willing to stay in that miserable position the rest of your life.
Because that was really about survival, and I got to another point of that like this. That was a couple of years on, probably about another 5 to 7 years on, when I'd been freelancing, and that was better because I could determine my own rules. I could determine my own hours. I could, there was a lot more freedom there. Of course, it came with added anxiety about where's the money going to come from.
Right.
But
entrepreneurship has its benefits and its not benefits.
Absolutely. But I got to another point where my health completely caved in on me, and there were autoimmune issues that, looking back, have been present throughout my life. But that was another point where I was completely like, there's no way that I could continue to do what I've been doing. So
that was another awakening. I know when we chatted before we started the record button here, you were saying how that was really a catalyst and an awakening for you to yet another level of life. So say a little bit about that.
Absolutely. And I think, actually the first burnout was also could have got me on this path, but that was, it was too big a jump at that point. But, about a year after I'd had my daughter, all of my reserves were completely eaten away. So the pregnancy and then trying to work, and I was just not recuperating at all. And I was not able to pick up, to take in nutrients anymore from my food. So I was really literally wasting away. It was very, very clear that I could not do the work. I couldn't travel. I couldn't go into companies and do all these away days and trainings and stuff. Like, there's no way that I could do that.
So your body is literally telling you it's time for a change.
Yeah, it was literally, I couldn't walk the stairs anymore. Like, I was that weak. So yeah, it was, and of course I had gone on until the very end before I was ready to hear the message. But yeah, my body was telling me big time that was not the way for me. And I think what I told you before we started our chat today was, without that, I would never have had the courage to do what I'm here to do. And, the reason that I know that this is what I'm here to do is because there's such an incredibly deep sense of fulfillment, of nourishment from what I'm doing. And that is, beyond the money. The money is good now, it's fine now. But there is an inherent sense of success, but way more than that comes from me doing this. So I know that, yes, what I'm doing now is so much more important to me than the work that I was doing. The work that I was doing was very good for on an ego level. Like, that was like important, and I was like doing like important stuff. But this is actually important to me, to my soul, to my deepest knowing. This matters most, for sure. Yeah.
Wow, what a powerful space to be in your life, to know that you are doing the work that you're meant to be doing. When in that journey did you realize that you had found that thing that was your sole purpose?
Well, that's such a good question, because it was definitely not when I just got to be home and not well. That was like is it never going to end kind of time. And again, there was like very little, it took me a year to find my own diagnosis. There was very little support. This is all like on the edge of what our medical system knows right now. They're all researching into it. So it was a really, really difficult time. And again, I had this this drive inside of me that said, well, there's no way that this is your life. There's no way that this is all that there is for you. That there's, I just felt this really deep need to serve, to be, to offer my gifts into the world in whatever small or big way there was. But I needed to not just, we have a saying in Dutch that's like, to sit behind the geraniums on the windowsill, like, and watch life go by. Like, that was not going to be me. So the little energy I had, I used to research online to, what could be the problem and what could be solutions. And, finally, I did find the diagnosis. I also found ways of mitigating the effects on my body. And once that started to happen, I also started to think about, so how can I be of service? And it's brought me to B-School, which is
where we met.
Because I started thinking, okay, so if I can't go to people, they'll have to come to me in some way, and I don't want them in my home. So hey, luckily we have online opportunities, so much more now. We can just about do everything that we can do in normal life online.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's
amazing.
really been my saving grace, because that really brought me to, okay, so what can this look like? How can this work? And, it wasn't the first go that was like this. I first started out as a coach, focusing on people with chronic health issues. Well, I knew a little bit about that. But I also knew it wasn't quite it. There was this bit inside of me that knew, but I just didn't know what else it was until people started, people from the B-School community started asking me, so, what did you do before? And can you teach us? Because I've been training coaches up in the years before as well. Can you teach us? And I was like, yeah, probably, but not in the way that I used to do that, because that's not going to fly with my body, with my energy. So I started thinking about, so what would that need to look like for me for that to be possible? And this is where I got to be co-creating with my health, really. And this is where I'm so grateful for all these health issues too, because I wouldn't have found this. I wouldn't have had the courage. I wouldn't have had the guts to start stripping away what wasn't needed or wasn't in alignment for me, and then start adding the things that I really needed to be in the mix for me. But then I also started to see, well, it isn't just for me. It has really big implications for the people that I teach and for the people that they coach. So that really is how soul-based coaching as a methodology was born. And that was it probably, it took a couple of years until I found, well, actually, this isn't just, because at first I was thinking like, maybe this is just a, how do you call that? Maybe this is just something that it's accommodating me. It can be helpful for others, but but I started to see that actually, no, that is really not true. It's
so the vision developed almost as you kept going. The vision kept growing.
Absolutely. Yes. If I'd have thought I'm going to, start an academy, I'm going to train coaches in 20 countries and I'm going to blah, blah, I would have gone, oh my, I don't know if I can do that, because by then the faith that I had in my physical abilities had been seriously undermined, because I'd started stuff and then had to come back again, and a lot of times. So yeah, this is happening. This has grown organically, and it keeps growing organically, which is just really, really cool.
Which is so amazing. So say a little bit about, because my audience has heard me talk so much about when you listen to that heart-centered intuition, it really leads you in the direction that you need to go. And I remember a spot in my own life where I turned that voice off. I didn't listen to it. And then I really later in life had to reconnect to it and understand what it was telling me. But so how did you listen to that own inner voice, or how do you as you live your journey?
Such an important question. I think this is something that we should teach our children. I think
absolutely, I agree.
It's such a main skill in life, and I think it's what we miss in our societies as well. So yeah, it's definitely taken me quite a bit of time to get into that connection with myself again as well. And I think I shared with you previously as well that as I started doing my corporate career, I also started taking trainings in energy healing and Reiki and all sorts of different things. And I always said, I'm not going to be that person who has that, tag on the door that says energy healer. But I need that for me. So I was just kind of like, it helped me make sense of the world around me. I was finally feeling like grounded and in my body. And I think that's where I first learned that actually there's a different way of being in touch with myself, and that you can actually just go there, that there is a way where you can just feel into that. It's not very far away because by definition,
Yeah, and it's always there. You can always
Yeah,
connect with it.
absolutely. And I think over the years, I've found different ways that work really well for me. And I think it's really good for everyone to have different ways of connecting in with that intuition and with that sense of presence with yourself. So in our academy, we talk about our daily connection practice, which is really an invitation to just have some way that really speaks to you, that helps you make that connection. And just to give some examples of what works well for me is a walk in the forest. That is always
Connection with nature.
Yes, it's like actually feeling my feet on the earth. If I have, if I can make it work, I really love meditating in the forest even. But then if I can't get into the forest, I'll meditate at home. And it doesn't have to be long. It can be 10 minutes of sitting with what is. That's my way of meditating when it comes to my connection practice. It's really about holding space for myself and allowing whatever is present to be present, to keep breathing, and just to allow that to flow however it wants to flow. So without an agenda of fixing anything or making anything go away, but really to be willing to connect and be where you are, because we're so busy living our lives in our heads and having all these ideas about how things should be, and actually allowing yourself to be sad or overwhelmed or whatever the feeling is, but not to move into the story that you have about it, but to stay with the actual experience of that.
Say a little bit more about what you mean by move into the story about it, because gosh, that's so key in awareness.
Yeah, this is this thing that, a human emotion, I've forgotten the number. I think it lasts for a maximum of 90 seconds at most. So this is scientifically researched. So the reason why that's not what we think happens is because as soon as we start to feel sad, overwhelmed, scared, whatever the dominant feeling is at that time, is that we start to think about that feeling. We start to think about things like, why is it there? Why it shouldn't be there? Or what you should have done to prevent it? Or what you should be doing.
We kind of get on board with it, right? We make friends with
put
it.
ourselves into the frame of that feeling and the associated kind of thought. There's like a constellation of thoughts that goes into that. And when we do the thoughts, it triggers the feeling again. So this is why our feelings tend to last for way longer than 90 seconds. And we get stuck into these stories that we have about ourselves or about our patterns or about life or about, the government or whatever else we want to call out. So being able to stay with the physical feeling of whatever it is without going into the thoughts that you have about it, that is a really key practice. Because what you'll see then is that you'll notice that a lot of the energy that is in these feelings can flow through your system, and it can start to shift and change. We all know that every once in a while people have a really good cry because it's needed, and afterwards feel really relieved. It's like that's an example of when people ride the waves and actually allow the energy to move through them rather than to kind of go, oh no, now I'm sad, and go, kind of hang on to that story and that feeling with their life, because it makes sense to them. to do
So they
that.
don't have to jump on the train with the feeling and head off down the track with it. You can just really embrace it in the moment, experience it, and not get into the thoughts and thinking about it, and let it go.
Yes, absolutely. The train is not relevant, not helpful, not useful. The other kind of the other extreme of it is that we're going to go and deny what we're feeling, but that's not going to be helpful either, because that's going to set these energies stuck in your body. So for me, a big part of my spiritual practice even has been to learn to experience the feeling as it is. And the way that you can start to do that is to really, when you're sad, where are you feeling it in your body? What does it feel like? Is it like a pressure or a constriction, or is it like a more of a blankety type feeling? Where do you feel it? And so to really focus on the physical aspects of that feeling. And that's how you start to not have time to go on the bandwagon of thoughts and story.
And before you know it, it releases and
Yeah, it releases and it will
shifts.
shift, and it doesn't magically make everything go away, because these feelings are there for a reason. They're there to teach us something, but they're not there for us to keep stuck in the loop of that narrative.
Yeah, how beautiful. I can see that we could just talk all day long about this stuff. It's so amazing. But I want to get to the part of your story where um, I know you had some recent shifts and changes in your life with your husband's job and career. And tell us how you were now prepared because of all the growth you'd done in the business. Tell us how that unfolded for you.
Yeah, so that's a big thing that's happening. It's still happening, actually. So over the years that I was, battling with my health and making all these changes, I was really lucky to be supported by my husband. And we were a really good team, and we've really come through stronger because of it. Um, and so now that the academy is running well, and we've got lots of people coming in to be trained, and that's all working. What also happened was that my husband's, the department that he was working in, was being dissolved and actually relocated to Romania. Now, we're not very interested in living in Romania, so we passed
That
on that.
wasn't on your agenda to move to Romania.
No, wasn't on our agenda. Although I'm told it's a beautiful country, and I definitely I am willing to believe that. No, but and so there is this part of me. There's this really interesting response. There's a part of me doing the fear response, like, oh my goodness, is this going to be okay? And then there was a really big part of me that went, yes, like this is so cool. And I think this is something that you saw me talk about as well. This is at this point for me where, okay, I know that this can work. I'm pretty sure he will find other work, but actually beyond that, I know that I can trust my ability to bring in money for our family too. And and the reason that this part of me went like yes is like it was also a call to step up and to go like, okay, cool. So now it really is time for you to, and I think this is the lines that you also picked
Yeah,
up on.
let me read what you wrote because I think it's so powerful. You said, it's been so good to feel how I want to surf the edge of what is possible and not just play where the water is waist deep when it comes to my business. That just gives me like the goosebumps to read that because, anyone could substitute business, life, whatever it is in there. So yeah, tell us about that.
Yes, gosh, yes. There's this sense of, oh, this entrepreneurship has all sorts of upsides and downsides, and for me, it's been one heck of a personal development journey as well. We keep having to stretch ourselves and to find ways in which we can deal with the uncertainty or things not working or all of the things that come onto our path. And I realized that even with all of that and with my ability to keep at it and to keep building, there was a part of me that was staying in the comfortable spaces. It's like it was comfortable up to that point. That's where I was. That's cool. This will do me nicely. Thank you very much. And I realized that if I'm going to be very serious about this business, I need to not be here. I need to be out there. And that's a really exhilarating feeling.
Yeah.
And it's really important to keep myself, to keep reminding myself about that as well, because it's easy to just go through the motions of every day and stay in inside of what we know. But there is so much more out there, so much more in terms of possibilities, and in terms of me having that sense of living my soul calling. That's beautiful for me, and I can keep it like here, and that can be beautiful. But actually, what I know now is that it has so much value for other people that it needs to be out there. It needs to be much wider, available and known by people. And that's not going to happen if I keep doing like the smaller, comfortable, waist deep things.
So what does 2020 look like for you in playing big on the edge of things?
This is such brilliant timing that you're asking me that question. So yeah, 2020 really is about getting my ass out there. It's about showing myself, and I've been doing that gradually. And I was just thinking about this today, actually. So in my life, I've come out twice. So once as a bisexual woman, which was a long time ago. But actually, when I started the Academy for Soul-Based Coaching, that was when I was going into my professional world and life as, an executive coach and doing all these things, and then going soul. And that felt way scarier than the coming out that, happened years and years and years ago. And so this is another level of that. It's like, okay, world, here I am. You know what? Soul matters. It matters deeply. We need it very, very much.
Finish what you're saying, and then I have a follow-up question to that.
Sure. Yeah. So we need that, because we're not going to cut it with our minds and our emotions. We need that deeper guidance, and we need access to it. And this is why, soul-based coaching is such a beautiful methodology, because it helps people tune into their own soul knowing without any outside experts. And it tells them how you can create changes in your life in a way that are easeful and that are almost magical, but they happen. And they call in the things that really fit the journey that you're on here.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. And coming from the corporate world of executive coaching and now doing, I love how you said this, like coming out, because there is a hesitation for us to be really seen and show up just as who we are. So I'm curious, how does that new you interact back into that corporate world, or do you, or is there opportunity for that to fit into the corporate world?
So what's really interesting is that what I realized was that in the corporate world, a lot of what happens is that people play roles and wear masks. You behave in the way that is expected of a certain pay grade or function or whatever role you have. And I'm not willing to do that anymore. So I cannot do that. I'm not willing to. And that means that I'm not interested in going into organizations anymore. So I'm not playing the game anymore. But I'm here and I'm available for people that want coaching, who want to navigate their way inside of that system in a different way. Sorry. And of course I do still have my friends and my network that I will sometimes meet up with, but all the people that are not willing to connect on a soul level have fallen away, and that is more than okay for me.
And sounds like there's plenty who are seeking that soul level connection.
Absolutely, and more and more and more. And one of the things that I feel extremely happy with is that because I'm no longer willing to compromise, I'm also offering other people the opportunity to not do that. I mean, so the more that I show of myself, the more that I get back. And the fact that I'm
Beautiful.
having this thing in my throat right now is so related to what we're talking about. It's like, okay, that next level of stepping out there.
Comes across as a hesitation, right?
There's like, ooh, there's fear there. But
Yeah.
I know what the worth of that is and what the value of that is. And what I do is not for everyone, and that is more than fine. There's there's enough people in the world for everyone, to just make a good living, but to find the connections that you need, the connections that will nourish you. So
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I just have a few questions as we wrap up here. Who are some of the people who've inspired you on your journey?
so many. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, Marie Forleo, the founder of B-School, is definitely somebody who's inspired me and shown me a roadmap as to how you can do business online. Um, Others that have inspired me are Shamli Yarda from the Awakening Women Institute, who is one of my spiritual teachers. And she's really given me a lot of tools to navigate life, but also her teachings and the work that we do in soul-based coaching, they map onto each other really beautifully. So they kind of that's a really beautiful container that we can use for our work. And then other people that have inspired me are people that are really good at what they're doing. So Penny Tompkins and James Lawley are the developers of symbolic modeling, which is part of the work that we do in soul-based coaching. So I love people that have really paid due diligence to their craft. They really inspire me most.
Ah, beautiful, beautiful. What would you say to someone who is in the middle of experiencing a health setback like you're so familiar with?
Oh, hang in there. Hang in there, and do not accept the fact that this is all there is for you. Like part of my journey has been noticing how food influences my health. And when I started to talk to people about this, I came across a friend of a friend who was suffering from MS, and who was in a wheelchair by now. She's really bad. And I was just talking about how part of the diet I was doing was helping people with MS. And it involved, among other things, going gluten-free. And her response was, oh my goodness, but that is so difficult. And I was like, living in a wheelchair isn't. It's like, my brain
Perspective, right?
Yeah, it's like my brain doesn't compute that. But it's like, do not accept that where you've gotten to has to be where you're going to be. Be open, be willing to explore and experiment, because there is, not always, but often there is definitely improvement that is possible. And for me, it's proven to be one of my biggest gifts as well.
And because you said some of your greatest awakenings in life came out of those times of health issues, how would you encourage someone to explore that aspect of it for themselves?
Yes, I think I would have hated myself if I'd heard this back then. But the words that I have for it now is that dare to surrender and to follow the path that you're on. I'm not someone who will say everything has its reasons, and but I do think that there is my path would have been a lot easier if I wouldn't have fought it so hard on the way. So being able to surrender and stay present to the journey is a deep life skill.
For sure, for
It takes a lot
sure.
of skills to be able to do that, but that is the way that you're going to get through the quickest and also find the gifts
Okay.
that are attached, and find help, find support, so you don't have to do it alone.
Beautiful. And what would you say to the entrepreneurs? Because I have a wide variety of entrepreneurs in my group or in my audience, from people who own a storefront of some type to people who are just building an online business and going through sometimes the challenges that go through there. So what would you say to those entrepreneurs that are seeking to live out their true purpose?
Stay at it. It's like, yes, one of the lessons that was hard for me was dare to fail. So keep at it, and realize that not everything you're doing is going to work, and that is okay. Because in the end, if you keep putting in, and this is part of it, the way that Chablis teaches this is like, the way the universe works is that if we put in our tapas, if we put in our work, our intention, then the universe is going to reward that. It's about, are you willing to stay the course? Are you willing to keep putting in, of course, learn from what you get back, adjust, but are you willing to keep going at it? 5 things every day, and that should do it. Just keep doing it.
Beautiful. I love that. So if someone wants to find out more about your soul-based coaching program or connect with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, great. academyforsoulbasedcoaching.com is our website, and that gives you all the details, but also gives you a free training to get started in soul-based coaching, so you can try it out. But also you can find us on Facebook, Academy for Soul-Based Coaching, and we have a lovely free community there as well. So of course, people are very welcome to join.
Beautiful. Thank you. And is there any other words of wisdom that you would like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think the words of wisdom are that my saving grace in whatever time I was in has been gratitude. It's taken me a while to really wrap my heart around it, but that is the quickest way to tune into the energy of joy and to turn things around.
How beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm super grateful for you for being here today. And I so look forward to more conversations with you in the future.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, Vicky. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. All right.